Everybody? Welcome to another Simply Bitcoin IRL. Looks like you guys are really enjoying these, so we decided to do more. Today I have a buddy of mine, Alex. He's the CEO and founder of Lolli. I'm sure a lot of you guys already use the service. And how you doing, Alex? You've been on the show a couple times.
Yeah, good to be back.
Happy to have you, man. So how's the bear market?
Good. As good as it can be, right? We can't go up all the time. But yeah, I think things are going pretty good. I mean, right now, I think that now is an incredible time to get into Bitcoin, and yeah, as you know, we've created a way for people to get into it for free. So I think that there's a lot of companies that require you to buy Bitcoin to get into it, and that's just a harder sell at this point. Lolli's free. Lolli makes Bitcoin easy and free. So yeah, just trying to make it easier for people to onboard, no matter if it's a bear market or a bull market. So doing okay.
So one of the things that I always hear from people that run Bitcoin companies is that the bear markets are brutal, right? We've seen all this, all these mining companies just pure capitulation. Some bigger companies as well. From your perspective, the CEO of pretty well known, pretty successful Bitcoin company, how has that been? How has the bear market treated you? Have you had to downsize? Like, what have been some of your experiences?
No, we've been bringing on more people, more companies joining Lolli. We launched in a bear market. We've weathered bear markets before, and this is our team's second company. So we've been through lots of ups and downs over the last 11 years of since building our last company together, and then this company over the last 4 years. So I would say we're well prepared and for this kind of market, and really, yeah, just trying to bring on more merchants. I think a lot of people talk about consumers joining Bitcoin, like every day, mass adoption. I think is what we talk about, but we look at both sides of the market. For us, are both consumers and merchants, and merchants are finally the ones that have been holding out for 4 years are finally like, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is inevitable at this point, and they want to join. So we're bringing on new merchants every day that are giving Bitcoin rewards on people's everyday purchases, and then top of funnel, like new people joining Bitcoin is definitely, it's harder, but we have our set users that are using Lolli every day, every week, every month. And we just launched this new product that lets people earn in store that's doing very, very well. And so, yeah, just growing during a bear market. I think it's time to build, and people are joining. So it's been good.
Right, that's the thing, right? Is the bear market, you don't have the volume that you would normally have during the bull, but it's kind of like a blessing in disguise because it really just allows you to concentrate, just put your head down and, just build, in our case, it's just better content. In your case, it's just a better product. And it's almost as if the silence is bliss. It feels really good. Like all the tourists, like I say, disappear, and the people that stay are really the big believers.
Exactly, yeah. And I think kind of what I mentioned earlier. In our case, it's an easier sell, right? Like free Bitcoin. You don't have to go buy it. So you're not telling your friends, hey, go buy Bitcoin, and give quote unquote financial advice. When you're doing so, I mean, you're essentially taking fiat money and you're putting it into Bitcoin is financial decision. With us, it's like you're just earning Bitcoin back on top of any card or on top of any purchase. So again, it's an easy sell to just like tell your friends about, and get them off zero or get them more Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe perhaps some people are not familiar with what Lolly does. What do you mean free Bitcoin? This sounds way too good to be true.
That's probably our biggest criticism. Yeah, it sounds too good to be true, but then people start earning it, and then they're like, "Oh my god, this is incredible!" So, yeah, we've created the leading Bitcoin rewards company. We partner with merchants. These merchants give Bitcoin rewards to our users when they shop. So it functions very similarly to a cash back program, but instead of doing cash back, we set people up with a Bitcoin custodial wallet and give them Bitcoin into their Lolli wallet. So yeah, it's very straightforward. I mean, like more details about it is if I go to, let's just say, Nike, or if I go to Shake Shack or CVS, I can go shop it for shoes anywhere. I can go shop for Tylenol or whatever I'm looking for anywhere. But if I use Lolli and I go directly into a CVS using Lolli, I actually can get Bitcoin back on that purchase. So Lolli has influenced that sale and gets an incentive for that sale.
Gotcha. No, it makes sense. It's cashback. And when you say Lolli is the biggest rewards platform, who are your main competitors? I think it's Fold, right?
I don't really look at Fold as a competitor, but I look at Rakuten or Honey as being like competitors giving like cashback rewards or coupons. Um, yeah, um, I think like there's been a few copycats that have emerged over the years that are trying to like mimic what we're doing, but I think we've created the most sustainable way of working with merchants, and I think to this day we're still one of the only, if not the only, that actually has over 1,000 merchant partners on the platform and growing every day.
What has been some of the hurdles that you ran into starting this? Was it more regulatory hurdles, or was it more so just companies who just were not interested, right? I think I was on Amazon the other day and I saw the Lolli thing pop up. Um, so you guys are somewhat integrated with Amazon now.
No, so that's a good conversation piece actually. So we've created this way for people to actually like shop Amazon and then get recommended all of our other merchants. So if you're going to Amazon, we call it our conquesting tool. So if I'm like if I'm like Sam's Club or CVS or Walgreens or one of our partners, and I'm actually on Amazon and I see there is a let's just say like Tylenol for the earlier example, I can actually see where I can actually save money and earn Bitcoin when I'm on Amazon. So we figured out little hacks for partners or places that people that have not partnered with us that have been holdouts for actually like our users to actually figure out where to earn Bitcoin. We realized that people use Amazon very much for a search engine, and a lot of people use it as their primary merchant. But when given the opportunity to earn from our other merchants, they'll actually go shop at our partner merchants. So we built that tool, and it's been incredible to see the shift from people shopping at Amazon to decentralizing and going to other merchants that offer Bitcoin back and are Bitcoin friendly merchants, unlike Amazon.
Could Amazon shut that down?
No, so the laws of the internet is as soon as a page is loaded, it's fair game for anyone to build on top of or create a layer on top of is probably the best way. So sort of a legal hack of the internet is that yeah, we it's a tool on top of any site that lets you earn. And it just gives our users the ability to earn more. I mean, one of the biggest requests I think when we first launched was, "Hey, when Amazon, like, when's Amazon joining Lolli?" And we were like, "Okay, well, Amazon's the biggest merchant in the world, and or on online, and they weren't going to join anytime soon. They're behemoth, and they have no reason to be Bitcoin friendly. And so why wait for them to join us? I had reached out to them every month, had many conversations with them, and they weren't going to join anytime soon. And so if people are not going
Why?
to
Why didn't they? Why wasn't a company like Amazon interested in? Because I feel like it would be a win-win. Are they trying to implement it themselves eventually?
they just don't do they don't really do cashback as a whole. So it's not even Bitcoin for them. It's actually like they just don't work with partners like ours. If you think about like the macro, um, companies that are offering cash back are basically offering an incentive for you to shop at their store, at their online shop. And so Amazon doesn't need an incentive; they're already number one. So everybody else is offering an incentive for you to shop at their store versus Amazon. But Amazon should hypothetically be, the last merchant to join, because they just don't need it. And so my goal is, every month to keep sending sales away from Amazon and give people more Bitcoin. It's an arbitrage play, and it lets our users earn more Bitcoin, from other merchants that want to incentivize people more than Amazon does. So it's less about Bitcoin for Amazon and more about cashback and loyalty as a whole.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So one of the topics that when I tweeted out, and it's the concept of starting a Bitcoin company, and I think that there's definitely a lot of people that you know could see themselves as fellow entrepreneurs or Bitcoin entrepreneurs. I actually ran into a very young guy at Bitcoin Park today, and he was still interning at. No, he was still in school. I was like, hey, why don't you intern for Simply Bitcoin? He's like, actually, no, I'm starting a company to facilitate cross border payments. I was like, holy crap! At such a young age. Um, you have obviously launched a successful, sustainable Bitcoin business. What were the early days like? What would you have wished you knew when you started Lolly?
Great question. For one, and when you go Bitcoin only, it does make everything harder. It's really really hard to be a Bitcoin only company in this world. We've 4+ years and going, and we're still Bitcoin only. And I think it's gotten even more challenging, the more currencies that are out there, the more communities that are building outside, the more adoption by other chains. But we as a team, believe Bitcoin is the best currency in the world, and has already proven its value to society. I think business models around Bitcoin, are very tough. I would encourage
Why?
everybody to, because if you think about, like, everyone else is competing, it's not too dissimilar from the Amazon example I said earlier. Bitcoin, really doesn't need too many things built on top of it. It just is. And so if you think of, like, the incentive mechanisms that exist with exchanges, they're incentivized for on transactions. So the more you're transacting, the more money the exchange is making, and so it's in their best interest to offer as many altcoins, shitcoins, as possible. Can I say that, by the way, on the show?
You can say whatever you like, man.
Okay, great, great. Um, and so it's in their best interest, if you're an exchange, to offer as many currencies as possible, because they want you transacting as much as possible. So if you look, there's no exchange that offers, at scale, um, Bitcoin only, and so most companies have to transition out of Bitcoin only and into other currencies. If you look at a lot of custody providers, almost all of them are transitioning, if they ever were Bitcoin only, or transitioning to multi-currency, because you can make more money, you can reach a bigger audience. So I think our mission is to continue to promote Bitcoin, and do it for as long as we possibly can, and always be a Bitcoin first company, because we believe that it is the most important thing to educate people on. I would say, for most people, if you are trying to build a Bitcoin only company, play 10D chess and play out. Do you need to transition to other currencies? There's mechanisms or models out there, like mining, for instance, where you hypothetically could, if you're focused on proof of work, you could focus on proof of work blockchains, and as alternative currencies and chains start to transition into proof of stake, or proof of history, or whatever they're calling it these days. Um, then you could probably play out scenarios where you could serve Bitcoin only users, or Bitcoin companies, or Bitcoin, the progress of Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you said that. I'm pretty close with the Luxor guys, and they've been getting pretty big. I think that after that pull in Shabacle, I think they're more than 6% of the total Bitcoin hash rate at this point, which is absolutely massive. Um, yeah, and when they started, in order to get a leg into the Bitcoin, the hash rate is so competitive. They actually started with shitcoins, and they were offering mining pools for the shitcoins, and then when they reached a sufficient amount of volume, then they eventually pivoted because they're like, okay, they're shitcoins, like this is stupid, and then they went to Bitcoin fully. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, so a lot of companies have to bootstrap and they have to get the like profitable or start making money. Every team's different, every person's different of what it takes to get there. Um, it's for some people it's like an ethical debate. Is it good to mine altcoins or shitcoins if it means the greater good of Bitcoin? I personally take that camp of like, if it means that we can decentralize the mining pool and build better infrastructure. And if I believe in a free market first and foremost. I think people are going to go get the currencies that they want, trade them, mine them, whatever. Anyway, and the best currency is going to win with or without, um, whatever they're doing. And so I think just looking at their traction so far, I mean, I think it's safe to say that it was probably worth it for them to launch in that way and figure it out as almost like a hack to start making money. So not a bad thing, and I'm sure that's a contrarian take to many hardcore Bitcoiners out there, but I think whatever it takes to actually get build better mining infrastructure. This is probably for the best in the long term.
So let's talk about, because that's one of the pushbacks that you're automatically going to get, right? Is a lot of the maxis, and I'm on that boat as well. They're always going to say stuff like, yeah, but what about the moral hazard? What about the principles of, even though this coin is worthless, is it ethical to use said coin to prop yourself up enough in order for you to be a viable business in Bitcoin? Is that how do you feel about that? Is that okay in your eyes?
I think it is. I mean, if you look at the companies that have realistically driven Bitcoin adoption more than any, a lot of the Bitcoin maxis hate them. Like, if you removed Coinbase from the world, or Genesis, or a lot of exchanges, we would not be where we're at today with Bitcoin. So I think that a lot of Bitcoin maxis fail to realize the economics of building any company, and what you need to do to actually make money in this world. So the realistic business model for most of these companies is you need users, you need people to buy cryptocurrencies, and it comes down to what are these companies doing once they've made money to educate their users. Now, what I do think is good criticism and good pressure that Bitcoin maxis, Bitcoin um, rationalists put pressure on is, once these companies have made money by the means in which they have done to compete, what do they do with that? Are they donating to Bitcoin Core? Do they are they promoting more shit coins? Are they promoting Bitcoin development and adoption? And so that's where I think that's what I think is important, is like, go make money, go push forward with Bitcoin adoption, and do what you have to do that. But give back when the time is right to do so. So I'm actually, I'm in the camp that a lot of these exchanges that have done this have mostly been net good. I think it's very tough to look at the whole space and not see that. There's very few companies that are out there that are able to have the luxury of offering Bitcoin only products, and a lot of those already make billions of dollars in other sectors and then start to offer it. So if you look at the the block already has like a profitable business on the terminal
Yeah, but
side.
hold on. I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna push back a little bit. But what about Swan, for example? Right? Swan is a huge fan. Love Swan. I think they're proving that you could build a very profitable Bitcoin exchange selling Bitcoin only, right? Because my so and I know I come from the Maxi camp. This is simply Bitcoin after all. Um, is that even though you, because think about it, if you have the smarts, if you have the resources in order to build up an exchange, right, to build up a Bitcoin company, wouldn't you could make the argument that you built it on blood money, right? There must be, and I think Swan has proven that, where you can build a profitable Bitcoin without offering any shitcoins.
So Swan, I love Corey, love what they're doing. I love that they've stayed Bitcoin only, and I've had several conversations over the years about that with them. It's if you look at Swan in comparison to any of the major exchanges, they are a drop in the bucket and they're tiny in comparison. The that's not a knock on them or anything that they are building and what they're doing. I think that I believe, in a free market, I would rather have the conversation. Like if you can't go acquire a new user, so let's just say like remove all, exchanges. Let's just play out this scenario. Um, I'm an average everyday consumer, and I hear about some shitcoin that I want to go learn about. If I go in through that route, and I don't even have the ability to go to Swan. Let's just say I'm learning about like Cosmos or something like that. Not to say it's a shitcoin, but it's another chain. So I hear about Cosmos, and I hear it from a friend, and that's like the first thing that like gets me excited about going into getting into quote unquote crypto. And so that's how a lot of people are going to join crypto, whether you like it or not, or whether I like it or not. And so I go and I type in, hey, where do I go find Cosmos? Where do I go buy Cosmos? Most likely, through SEO, I'm going to go find Cosmos to go buy it on Coinbase or Kraken or um, Gemini, or somewhere to go buy it. Every time I go in, that company is going to make significant more money. They're going to be able to advertise more. They're going to be able to promote things more. I would rather capture that customer and then promote Bitcoin to them because they were already going to go buy Cosmos.
But that's the problem. That's the problem, though, Alex. Right? Is that, for example, a company like Coinbase, they're not incentivized to promote Bitcoin after the fact, right? Like Coinbase, in a way, has been hostile towards Bitcoin, right? I think it was cracking. Like, for example, none of these exchanges have added Lightning Network functionality because it would defeat the purpose of shilling a lot of the shitcoins that they have, right? So I think that, and I totally understand your point where Kraken, Gemini, Coinbase, they're getting the vast majority of the volume, but does that justify selling coins of which they know are worthless, and they're selling those coins on the mere fact of trying to capture those transaction fees, and they know that, and the part that I have trouble with the most is that they advertise them as being equivalent to Bitcoin, right? And I think that's kind of like the issue, the moral conundrum that I have. But I don't think you guys do that at Lolli. I think you guys are Bitcoin only.
No, absolutely. I'm just so like the debate I think is like, Bitcoiners largely would consider themselves free market maximalists, right? Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so if you believe in a free market, what like wouldn't like the free market is going to capture as much of the demand that there possibly is. And so in a free market, if people are coming in and going to get whatever they want, then it would make the most sense to give as many, like reach as many people, go get 100 million users, and then put that money into good. Those people are already going to join these companies. I would rather companies that have that are aligned with Bitcoin. So if you looked at what Coinbase, they get a lot of shit, and I'm not saying that they're perfect by any means, but they've also done a lot of good for the space, and they've given probably more Bitcoin out to people than almost every company we're even talking about, way more than us, way more than Swan, way more than anybody. And so if you're talking about like how did most people get their first Bitcoin, more than likely it was Coinbase, and it was because they did the model that they're doing right now. Now it's an unpopular opinion because people want to shit on a lot of these companies because they're offering these like long tails. But if you look at like historically, the reason why they started going long tail, it was because of the free market. Binance historically, Binance started offering every coin, every single possible coin that was released. It was always like the centralized exchanges had to race against the free market. If you look at like Uniswap and SushiSwap and everything, they were pulling the free market apart. They were saying, you can't compete with us if you're a centralized company unless you offer every shitcoin in the world. And so there is a moral debate, there is an ethical debate of like how far do you go down that path. I'm just calling it like I see it. It's if they want to compete with the inevitable, which is like Uniswaps and SushiSwaps and these decentralized exchanges literally offering every single thing on ERC20 and every chain. That's the inevitable future. That's what the free market is, and most people aren't willing to say that's what's actually happening. And so my point is that if that is the inevitable, which I believe it is, I would rather say, hey, let's get aligned around what's the most important narrative to go bring these people that are joining, this crypto conversation, that are joining this economy, and say, hey, Bitcoin is the best of all of these, and we need companies that support that. If you look at I don't want to get into big, like, I'm defending Coinbase or whatever like that. They've done plenty of bad, but I mean, they were just defending privacy and funded all of the privacy litigation. I think that was just happening, and that's extremely good for no matter which way you're looking at it. So they've done a ton of good for the space that I don't think they get a lot of credit for. With the tornado cash, like if privacy gets destroyed, we're going to be in a pretty bad spot no matter what chain you endorse and what you believe in.
Yeah, I just think, I'm really morally conflicted because so there's really two, fine, the free market. I think being a libertarian at heart, I don't think it should be, I don't think it should be the government's interest or anybody to get to dictate what someone can buy and what someone can't buy. If someone wants to buy said shit coin, so be it. But I do think that, for example, I'll give my example with Simply. I can't speak for Swan, but I'll give my example with Simply. We would be able to monetize this show and grow 100%, like thousands of percent faster. And we'd be making a lot more money from advertisers if we decided to, start sponsoring or taking sponsorship money from shitcoin companies, right? But is that really going to push the paradigm? And I think what the paradigm is fundamentally, at least to me, is the separation of money and state. And all these shit coins, they add all this functionality. They add, whether it's the yield and the bullshit and this and that and that. But in order to achieve all of that, they sacrifice decentralization in the process, right? And if it's not decentralized, it can't withstand the state, right? And I think that what Bitcoiners fundamentally want at heart is the separation of money and state. And I think that we know on a subconscious level, on a deeper level, that only Bitcoin could push that, right? So it just acting in my own interest, just following my own incentives. If I take that short-term money now, down the road, I'm hurting myself. Because what I really want is to separate money from state, and only pushing a Bitcoin standard is going to achieve that. So perhaps I can make the argument that it's sacrificing the short-term profits now for the benefits later. And I think I can't speak for Swan, but at least that's the logic of Simply, right? It's like, look, if I shield, Ethereum, if I shield whatever shitcoin number 255, right? I know that that's not going to help you achieve financial sovereignty. I know that that's not going to help you, down the road, right? I would be shilling that only out of my self-interest for benefit to no one else, right? I know, for example, if I, promote Bitcoin, if I advocate for Bitcoin, I know that not only is it going to help me, it's going to help that other person. The incentives align. It's a mutually beneficial, you know, it's a mutually beneficial relationship in that sense, right? And I think with the shit coins, yeah, man, of course, the free market wants that, but don't you think there's a little bit of personal responsibility that falls onto the entrepreneurs that decided to launch these companies to be at least transparent on what it is they're selling to their customer base? And I think Coinbase does a horrible job at doing that. And I think that if Coinbase was at least a little bit more honorable in saying, listen, these are shit coins. They're not equivalent to Bitcoin. If you want to gamble, so be it. But this is Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the only thing that is going to successfully separate money from state. Bitcoin is the only thing that is truly decentralized. Therefore, it's the only thing that can give you true financial sovereignty. Why can't both be true?
Because it's just it's like basic like economics of running a company. So like in these two scenarios, if I'm a Bitcoin only company and I can make, let's just say like 10 million a year or something like that, and I can run it profitably, and that's and hire 20 people and run that company. Let's just say that's a scenario, not naming any names. Um, and I can go run a company that is an exchange that's offering, all these alternative currencies, and I can go make 5 billion a year, and put 4 billion or 3 billion or whatever into advertising. If I'm running the first company and I can spend 3 million on advertising versus a company that's offering that can spend 3 billion on advertising, it's almost the same amount of like effort and energy and everything. And on a 5, 10, 15, 20-year time frame, no matter which way you look at it, the company that is spending more to go acquire more users and bringing on more into crypto is going to win all day. So I would rather that latter company, the one that is a pro Bitcoin company, and I think that there's a lot that can be done to put pressure on those companies to be more pro Bitcoin, to donate more into Bitcoin Core, into programs around Bitcoin education. I mean, I think one of the best examples that I'm specifically speaking towards is the Block Square. I mean, they took a lot of money that they were making. They could make so much more money if they offered Ethereum and Ripple, Cosmos, whatever. And they've been able to be Bitcoin only. I think it's a very rare example. I think it's maybe the only example of a company that generates billions of dollars and already has an existing business and is able to use a Bitcoin only as part of their play. I just don't think that that's the common case, and I don't think that we are going to reach a hyper Bitcoinization future without the exchanges being able to market and use those 3 billion, 4 billion, $5 billion of marketing dollars to go attract these next wave of users. So I just think I'm really not like arguing for it. I'm more just saying what's happening and what's inevitable. It's with or without me, you, any podcast, any company happening. That's just what's happening out there because that's where companies are making money. The companies that are making the most money in the world are in the crypto space. Are exchanges, are buying and selling, and the demand for alternative currencies is incredibly high, with or without whatever we're doing. So more and more people are going to join this crypto revolution, and I would rather these companies join and have some sort of basis. So an example to kind of like prove my point is like OpenSea. OpenSea, launched as a Ethereum NFT exchange, and they have had an incredible amount of adoption. They've onboarded an amazing amount of people into the crypto space. Bitcoin has had NFTs they were the first to have NFTs. People want NFTs no matter which way you look at it. Fighting it is fighting art, it's fighting culture. And so if OpenSea had Bitcoin NFTs, if the Bitcoin community had built these layers in order to serve something that was inevitable, I think Bitcoin adoption would be way further along, instead of saying that, you know, Bitcoin you have to buy just Bitcoin. You can't buy layers on top. You can't build on top of Bitcoin. You can't, innovate on top of it. I think that was sort of the wrong path if we look like culturally with Bitcoin, and the direction that Bitcoin maxis chose, versus I think a route that a lot of Bitcoin rationalists would have said, like, hey, like Pepe's on Bitcoin. That's an incredible narrative, and now it's sort of picking back up of saying, wait, Bitcoiners had NFTs forever, and fighting culture doesn't really make sense in a lot of ways. People should be able to do what they want to do, and the free market is going to do whatever it's going to do with or without um, Bitcoin. And so I think that's more of a realistic narrative, and I think it's very important for us to practice rationalism over fundamentalism.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the where the issue that I'm having is, fine, you offer, it's like, look, like the drug dealer on the street offering, whatever narcotic he wants to do. He knows that that's going to do harm, but he's just trying to make a buck. It's the same thing. Like, I don't see it. I don't see a difference in it, and specifically Ethereum and XRP and a lot of these coins, right? They're using a lot of the money that they've raised to launch significant, and you could even say successful, social attacks on Bitcoin's proof of work. And Bitcoin's proof of work is the only thing that basically keeps Bitcoin uncorruptible, right? So, I mean, aren't isn't this just propelling or giving ammunition to people that by following their own incentives, they don't care if Bitcoin dies. They don't care. They would rather just enrich themselves. But if Bitcoin dies, and I don't think it will, right? Then we don't have the paradigm shift, right? We don't have the separation of money and state. We don't live in a world where the little guy that, sells whatever on the street corner could have the ability to save and earn in a money that can't be easily confiscated and can't be debased, right? And I think that if we placate, these people that pose themselves as alternatives to Bitcoin, I think what you're doing is that you're feeding people to attack Bitcoin. And I think eventually, and I think we're already starting to see this, you're seeing an alliance between the state trying to remain relevant, trying to continue to having that monopoly on the creation and issuance of money, and the second largest cryptocurrency, which is Ethereum. Like, Ethereum is going out there and pitching these people, hey, you could build the next central bank digital currency on Ethereum, right? So, I mean, like, I guess it's the way that you're looking at it. Like, for me, the most important thing for me is the separation of money and state. Like, look at what central banking, look at what the ability for the government to just create money out of thin air. Look at what that's done to humanity over the last 100 years, the endless wars, like the countless catastrophes of that. Couldn't you make an argument? And perhaps maybe it's not a capitalistic argument. Maybe it's not a free market argument. Maybe it's an idealistic argument. Couldn't you make that? Couldn't you say that perhaps maybe this is something bigger than ourselves, and perhaps maybe making a little bit of making a little bit less money, but freeing mankind is a price worth paying?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just I think if we played out the last 13 years, we would be uh, we wouldn't even be a fraction of where we're at right now with Bitcoin adoption. So I'm just being like hyper rational and realistic of like what has gotten Bitcoin adoption where it's at is exchanges making it easy for people to buy crypto, buy Bitcoin. If we had Bitcoin, if Coinbase had been Bitcoin only, if everyone had been Bitcoin only, like I like the idea. Like, I mean, how many people have you talked to that have been that started with Ethereum, started with some shitcoin or altcoin or whatever, and then found the light and was like, oh my god, what was I doing? I'm now a Bitcoiner. I'd rather have them enter into something and then convert over because they see that Bitcoin is the right path and is the most decentralized, is the separation of money and state. But you need that captive audience. You need someone to come into the space. And so, one of the biggest reasons people come into the space, if we're being, again, rational and realistic, is to make money. And they come in, and a lot of people are not like you and I, that are ideologically looking at this as being like, I care about decentralized um, money that doesn't need any governing body. So you and I, and I'm sure most of the people listening here, are in a very different camp where we are looking for decentralized money, whereas a lot of people are just looking to come in and make a quick buck, make a good investment, and join some alternative currency that has crazy high upside or crazy high yield. And so that again, free market, that person is going to join that whether we like it or not. And so I would rather that person join a company that is Bitcoin friendly and Bitcoin first, and then it not exist at all. Because I just don't think that a lot of people. I think we need to accelerate the adoption. Otherwise, the state's going to have the state has the biggest ability to shut down Bitcoin in a big way. So we need to increase the adoption at the fastest rate possible. And the more that we decentralize, more people that have Bitcoin, the harder it is to stop. And the faster we do that, the more Bitcoin we get in more people's hands, the better. And so I don't think that if you played back, every path, the shitcoins that are, the shitcoiners that are launching these currencies that are scams, a lot of these people are going to jail, and a lot of the people that are buying it, it's going to zero. And so, like, yeah, I think people will be rewarded for learning what are the principles that make a currency strong. And I think that people will be rewarded over a long enough time frame into a Bitcoin future, and the best currency will win over time, no matter what exchanges offer or endorse or anything. And
Mhm.
if Bitcoin is subject, if Bitcoin can be destructed, it will be destructed with or without their efforts, right? Like, if Bitcoin really is as great as we think it is, it doesn't need any of this. It arguably just needs more people to hold it and more people to believe in it. And that $3 billion I mentioned before, if that's going to getting more people to believe in it, I'd rather have that $3 billion going to it than not. And we'd be moving too slow in a world of Bitcoin only companies that are marketing. Now, that all said, I think going back to the additional layer of the free market, we need Swan, we need Lolli, we need these Bitcoin only companies to continue to fight and to preach for Bitcoin as much as possible. Um, and I think that there is a scenario where they build up this trust and they do gain credibility because they've stayed Bitcoin only. So I think it's again great what Swan's doing, and great what we've done to be Bitcoin only. But I'm just saying, like it's really hard to be Bitcoin only. Kind of to your earlier question about founders that are looking out there, like, you have to build a business, you have to compete. I am a fierce competitor. It's very, very fucking hard to go build a company where you're competing against other companies that are willing to go into offering alternative currencies. Like, a lot of why we've won and being able to like beat these companies, that these like copycats that have emerged, they've launched shitcoins that have no purpose on this earth, and a lot of those shitcoins have gone to zero. So yeah, we've offered the best currency in the entire world back, and we've taught these people. We've been rewarded for it. A lot of companies, it's very, very difficult to do that.
Yeah, man. It's interesting, and I really like that perspective, right? Which is, this is going to happen anyways. Let the free market do its thing, and if we all believe what we all believe about Bitcoin, then Bitcoin's going to win at the end. Um, I think I think there's a place for you know the scammers, the shitcoin companies that are going to do their thing, and I think that. But I do really fundamentally believe in my heart that it's necessary for Bitcoin only companies to exist, right? Because at least they show that, hey, look, you could build a business only on Bitcoin, and they're not scamming people, I think, at the end of the day. But anyways, I wanted to pivot to something else that I put into, and I really appreciate your input on that. I think that was a great conversation. Um, I wanted to pivot to what it here. Let me pull this up. Give me 1 second. Yeah. what it takes, right, to be and to be an what it takes to be an entrepreneur in the Bitcoin space. If you if you were to talk to yourself 10 years ago and you said, Alex, you should have read this book. You should have you should have talked to these people. You should have gone to school for this. You should have learned how to code. Anything. What would you have told yourself?
It's a great question. I got into Bitcoin in 2013, and I almost pivoted my last company into being a Bitcoin company. And so I would have said like, I don't know if it would have worked, to be honest, because of the timing that it was in 13. Other than if we had just put Bitcoin on the balance sheet and rode that wave, would have been a different kind of company, more of a micro strategy play. But I think that if I think the things that have made me successful thus far, and things that I think would have made me more successful, I think everyone needs to be like technologically literate, and do their own research. So um, I think like learning to code is a great thing. Not everyone needs to know, not like literally code, but you need to be deadly with it. You need to be able to be, you need to understand like what's actually happening in it. How are you going to read? What is a shitcoin? What's not? How are you going to read? Understand like potential layer twos or side chains that are built on top of Bitcoin. Um, I think that's a huge piece of the future, and really, it seems like it's going to be a part of the curriculum for future generations. Is everyone's going to have to learn how some form how to code, because it's going to give you the ability to know what is real and what isn't. I would say like learning how to learn is a big thing too. It may seem obvious, but one of my surprising things is like most people just never learn how to learn, and as soon as they leave school, they forget, or they just they can't learn anymore. They just sort of cut off at like, at 18 if they didn't go to college, and 22 if they did go to college. And so many people are just like force fed this information that their professors or teachers give them. And I think my biggest asset is I am like fiercely curious. I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly learning, and I wouldn't have learned about Bitcoin and continue to learn about Bitcoin if I didn't understand, the mental models of how to learn, and how to look at everything I learned with economics and realize, wait, that wasn't real. That wasn't completely accurate. And because I knew how to learn, I was able to, to read the Bitcoin Standard and be like, oh, this is more in line with, my thoughts on behavioral psychology and behavioral economics than the Keynesian path. I think that, I learned, and many people learned um, in university. So I would say like, yeah, like learning how to learn is probably like one of the biggest things. Is always stay curious and be able to do your own research is incredibly important. And then also, know something about, how to code, and how to diligence companies, because it ultimately helps you how to learn and what to look for.
Could you survive in this space without being a coder? Could you find a career in Bitcoin without being a coder?
I think so. I think it's just a matter of how much value do you want to add to the ecosystem, and I mean, there's a lot of things you could do, but I mean, really everything has, involves code at this point. But I mean, you could get into hardware. It still requires code if you're really being honest with yourself. But getting into hardware engineering, if you're interested in something like mining, getting into like learning about energy. Green energy, I think, is going to be like, the future there. I know that there's probably some debate there from the hardcore Bitcoiners out there. But I'm happy to go deeper there. Um, but I think if you want to get into mining, and if you want to like, you could go through the route of like, what's the power of mining? It's kind of, not too uh, dissimilar from what we just talked about, which is it all becomes driving to zero. Who can actually find the cheapest energy, and a lot of that is someone who can find alternative energy that is the cheapest, and on a long enough time frame, the cheapest, most renewable energy is going to be that that is probably alternative energy. that are renewables is most likely going to be the cheapest form of energy on a long enough time frame, almost no matter which way you look at it in most states.
What type of renewables though? Because hydro, fine, you can make that argument. That's already true today. But solar and wind, how could you say that?
Well, on a long enough time frame, technology should improve there, and I'm not saying that it's there yet by any means. And I think that's where, and I think people would debate. But the to debate innovation and to say that solar isn't going to get better, wind isn't going to get better, is just it's. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just dumb. Like all technology is going to advance. It hasn't capped out. I'm a a free market maxi, and I'm a human maximalist, and I think that humans are going to continue to innovate whether we like it or not, for Bitcoin or for not. And there's enough pressure at play for solar to get better. It already has over the last 10 years, and it will continue to get better over the next 10 years and the next 20 years. And so if you play out, scenarios where, yeah, well, if we see it cap out and it has an inability to get any better, we'll see it and we'll know that, okay, maybe solar isn't the play. But right now, the amount that it's advanced over the last 10, 20 years is absolutely incredible. And so it's going to continue to advance at that rate. Also, keeping in mind that most Bitcoin hypothetically should be just excess energy, and that's my favorite case for all of Bitcoin. It should just everyone should have a Bitcoin miner, and if you have excess energy, you turn it into Bitcoin. It shouldn't even be like, and so that to me is alternative energy that a lot of people don't want to talk about. That's energy like that would just go to waste no matter what form it is. And so if all, all forms of energy, if it's hydro, if it's solar, if it's wind, whatever, people are going to go make whatever energy they want, even if it's government subsidized. And if in that time frame, no matter what it is, if there's excess energy, let's just say like 25% goes wasted. I would rather a world where that 25% goes straight into Bitcoin, and that's a better world. So I don't want to really fight any innovation or any energy. I want all energy to be able to excess energy and to turn into Bitcoin, and that's going to make Bitcoin stronger.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely think that because Bitcoin is the energy buyer of all resort of last resort, right? Now any so-called wasted energy now has monetary value. It's just a matter of time before we figure out how to capture that and turn it into sats. I 100% agree with you there. So one last thing that's been troubling me, well, we'll use this for the last part of the podcast is and of course my life, your life, we've made significant bets on the the continuation of the industry, the continuation of Bitcoin. What worries me though in the United States specifically is the recent hostility from the U.S. Treasury, from the White House. um, I don't know if you read the piece by Nick Carter debunking the the digital assets framework by the White House, and then there was also the crypto asset implications on climate. And Nick Carter and ourselves, we pride ourselves on that. We were 2 or 3 days before Nick Carter. We are basically saying they're forcing the industry to adhere to standards that no other industry is forced to, including gold mining, by the way. And at the same in the same report, they are making the case for central bank digital currencies. So what that tells me is that clearly, at the end of the day, this is the separation of money and state. They are preparing. They're setting themselves up. And you mentioned Tornado Cash earlier on in the show. That was the first time in American history that the U.S. Treasury sanctioned open source software and not an individual, not a government. From your perspective, the CEO of a pretty successful Bitcoin company, Bitcoin only company, I might add. Um, what is your perspective on this? Does it worry you? Are you involved in any lobbying efforts? And do you believe? And I know I see a lot of Bitcoiners saying, "Oh, uh, they're doing a tremendous amount. They're putting a tremendous amount into lobbying and trying to change the mind of DC." What is your perspective on this, Alex? Where is this going? Where do you see this going in 5 years? I see a hand to hand combat. Like I don't think that they're gonna just give over the keys and go gently into that good night. What is your perspective on this?
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty scary. I think if you look at what is happening with the war on proof of work, you're starting to see where what many members of government want to happen, and a lot of them they don't actually know what's happening. But it's so it's part of it is like I think you just have to like this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like who has the money to fight? It's the Coinbases of the world. It's the Krakens of the world. It's the Geminis of the world. It's not these. We don't have enough money to do any damage in lobbying efforts at all. And so like we have to rely on these companies to defend us Bitcoiners and privacy and the forms of tornado cash in order to make sure that we don't get destroyed. So lobbying, whether we like it or not, takes an absurd amount of money to make anything happen. So we make an effort to donate to Coin Center. I do personally love the work that they're doing, and they do a lot of good for dispelling the myths around proof of work. I try to find narratives that work to our favor and sort of combat, I think, the narratives that they try to throw at us. So, kind of going back to what I just said, which is like energy is being wasted. Why not use it for proof of work, mining and turning it into Bitcoin? And so New York had it, which is where I live and where a lot of the company is based. Had this very, very aggressive stance on proof of work. And we've been very adamant on really calling them out. It was idiotic, for lack of a better word, of like their stance. They were saying like you can't start a Bitcoin mining company essentially, and you had to have it like defined of where you were getting your energy and what it was for. But they weren't putting that on any other energy company out there. It was just mining companies. And so the thing that it didn't recognize is like, well, can't we just turn every energy company into a Bitcoin company and give them a service? And then it kind of negates their entire argument. And it says, well, why would you want to waste energy? Like, why not turn it into something valuable and give more tax dollars? Like, these Bitcoin mining companies, they're paying taxes. These are companies. These are tax paying companies. These are building innovation. These are driving the adoption of chips and processors and U.S. built companies to drive innovation. So why would you not? Why would you be anti-innovation? Why would you be against your people in your state making money? And so that's where I try to like flip the argument. And I think Bitcoin has been like hard to fight. Gensler really hasn't been anti-Bitcoin. He's been anti-securities has been his stance. There's definitely stances that they're taking and nuances, but we have some really good people that I think that like Loomis that are fighting for Bitcoin, and we just need to keep electing officials. I'm if you can't tell, I'm very much in the camp of like we're not going to beat them by fighting them directly. I think we beat them by infiltrating them and by playing their game and electing people that are going to fight for Bitcoin. And if we try to fight them head on and say, oh, we're going to go full, like we don't want any part of it. It's part of why the Libertarian Party has really failed in many ways. Is because they don't want to play the game. They don't want to be a part of the system. And so if why libertarians don't get elected is because they're like, well, we don't want to be a part of government. And so I think you could make a strong argument that libertarian minded individuals and people who are going to fight for Bitcoin, I would rather someone go run as a Democrat that's going to be a Bitcoiner than or a Republican for that matter, that is a Bitcoiner that's willing to fight for us. So I think Loomis has sort of showed like what we can do in government if we have someone fighting for us, and Bitcoiners should be funding politicians that are running under any party. As long as they're a Bitcoiner and as long as they're going to fight for us, because we've seen how much good that does for us.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree. I think it Bitcoin really crosses party lines in that sense. I, but at the same time, I think that what it really does on a fundamental level is it just exposes the tyrants on both sides, right? The people that believe that they fundamentally could run your life better than you can run yours. And I think that those are the people that Bitcoin will continue to expose on the Republican side and on the Democrat side. But unfortunately, I think that there's very powerful people in our current American government that they'll be willing to say anything and everything just to at least slow the adoption. Brad Sherman doesn't even hide it. Like he'll tell you exactly why he doesn't like it. He's like, because we don't control this, right? Elizabeth Warren kind of hides it a little bit, right? But yeah, it's gonna be a hell of a fight, and let's see where the cards fall. But anyways,
And
Alex, I
also,
really go ahead.
we're talking about, just like the U.S., right? Like, I personally, I'm in the camp that Bitcoin doesn't need the U.S. to win. I'm extremely pro-American, and still think that we live in the greatest country in the world. And I think that we're losing sight of that, and we're losing that power day by day. But if we want to retain it, we have to be we have to be pro free market. We have to do what makes America great and has over the last 200 plus years, which is give people freedom. And Bitcoin is freedom money. And in order for America to stay great, we have to be pro Bitcoin and be pro innovation. And as soon as we lose that, I think other countries are going to just take advantage of that, and we're already starting to see that. But if we stop, American entrepreneurs, American founders from building Bitcoin companies and make it harder for us to build, to distribute Bitcoin to more people and to get people off zero and teach people about Bitcoin, it's gonna make it so much harder. We were already seeing, what anti-Bitcoin, anti-crypto politicians are doing to make it so much harder. All the FUD that's happening is making it harder for companies like ours to gain mass adoption, because people are scared of crypto now. People are scared of Bitcoin, and so yeah, the more we can do to I think elect good officials and not get make America get left behind, because Bitcoin is going to be adopted by the masses. It's just a matter of time on like what that time frame is. But it's a time chain that keeps on ticking. Like we've got till 2140, and Bitcoin's looking pretty good right now. So I'm more bullish than ever, with or without America. I don't want America to get left behind. So I'm going to
Correct.
fight for America, and I'm going to fight for Bitcoin. And I think that's I just want faster adoption and more people to adopt it. So it's not really up to America whether Bitcoin gets adopted. It's more like, do we want to protect our citizens and the people here to adopt Bitcoin faster and better to give them freedom.
Exactly. It's like if America adheres to the principles of which it was founded in, right? Bitcoin is like the most American technology. Respects private property rights, respects the sovereignty, but the big million sat question is the federal government going to step out of the way and let it happen? And unfortunately for them, the reality is that it will take a tremendous amount of power away from them. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of the tyrants, a lot of the bureaucrats that are they're in love with that power. It's intoxicating to them. I don't think they're gonna give up the keys so lightly. But we shall see. Alex, I really enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate you joining us today. Where could people find out more about you and more about Lolli?
Yeah, so it's lolli.com, Lolli.com. Try Lolli on Twitter. We're super active, posting the Bitcoin memes always. And then, yeah, I would say download Lolli. We just launched a new mobile app. People are earning a ton of Bitcoin, going in store, earning on their everyday purchases. You can turn any debit or credit card into a Bitcoin rewards card, which is dramatically increasing adoption. You could take your bank card, your credit union card, whatever card you want, and turn it into a Bitcoin card. Which we didn't even talk about, but that's a whole other thing of mass adoption. And then personally, yeah, I'm Alex Adelman on Twitter. DM's always open. Always down to talk Bitcoin, and I appreciate you having me on and asking all the great questions and the healthy debate and everything. So I appreciate everything you guys do for Bitcoin adoption and educating the world and getting people on the right path. So thank you for what you guys do.
I appreciate it, Alex. Alex, I'm going to put you backstage. I'm going to play the outro. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on another Simply Bitcoin IRL. We're going to continue to do this. I think the next person we have on the list is next Wednesday. We have James Lavish. He's coming on the show. Should make a good conversation. Anyways, guys, we'll see you tomorrow at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Standard Show. Alex, I'll see you in a bit.
Which one's the best crypto asset? Well, Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Okay. What's the second best? There is no second best.